agenda item number 8 is a public question. We've received a question from Wyman Yao. They are not in attendance today, so the question will be read out.
Thank you, Chair. It is in regard to the airport. It is a six-fold question. Firstly, the stop-go decision will cost a one-off 16.1 million. Is Doncaster bearing that cost? 2, if it is go, who is underwriting the financial risk of the loan? 3, who is bearing the trading risk of Fly Doncaster? 4, if Fly Doncaster fails, is Doncaster's gain share sunk? 5, what happened to the private sector investor, and are there talks with any prospective investor? And 6, does the continued absence of a private sector investor mean the break clause will be activated?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the question. The £16.1 million represents the cumulative grant funding from Simca to the City of Doncaster Council should that £10 million be approved today. City of Doncaster Council will use that funding to enter into transactions and fund costs. There will be no loan finance from CDC to Fly Doncaster at this stage, and City of Doncaster will be incurring costs directly. The decision regarding the gain share funding has not yet been made, as I think people are aware. The funds invested and those for consideration today are outside of the gain share investment programme. Further work is underway aimed at providing reassurance, due diligence required before a decision on gain share funding will be made. Also, clearly in light of the announcements from the government over just the last few days, keen to enter into a conversation with government there too. As outlined in the report, the procurement process has concluded but not returned an operator that could bring with it private investment, so therefore discussions and opportunity for private finance into the future remain ongoing. But in the near term, City of Doncaster Council have focused on operational priorities, essentially to try and get the airport open as quickly as possible. Through the funds being made available, City of Doncaster Council have engaged Munich Airports International, which I think we're all really pleased about, who will support the establishment of operations and development of the business over a multi-year period, and I believe they are confident that the passenger and freight forecasts can be delivered. So really pleased to set that record straight. Thank you very much. We've received a second question from Councillor Jane Cox.
Thank you, Chair. Jane Cox can't be with us today, so I'm going to read the question. Can I submit the following question to Oliver Coppard on agenda item 10? Given the decision to delay funding until an independent assessment is completed, what specific metrics or criteria will be used to examine the financial viability of the business case in order to determine a good use of public money? And also, can I submit the following question to Ros Jones on agenda item 10? Given the significant increase in costs from the initial outline business case to over 145 million, what mechanisms are in place to safeguard public investment if the airport does not achieve the projected economic benefits?
Thank you very much. I'll take this question. Thank you. Slightly surprised, I have to admit, to receive that question from Councillor Jane Cox. I was under the understanding she was supportive of reopening the airport, but maybe not. I thought she was. We're saying all projects and programmes that apply for funding are appraised and assessed for value for money using the Treasury Green Book and appraisal guidance. The value for money assessment considers the potential costs, benefits, risks and uncertainties and impacts of the project. A benefit cost ratio, what we'd call in shorthand a BCR, is calculated for the project wherever possible, but this is just one of the basket of metrics considered in that value for money assessment, as I think people would understand. All the wider monetised and non-monetised impacts and benefits of a project are quantified wherever possible, and non-quantifiable benefits are also assessed qualitatively. Non-monetised costs and disbenefits are also qualitatively assessed. Given the complexity and the risk around this project, further work will be undertaken to consider the commercial viability of the proposal. The detail of this additional commission has not yet been finalised, and we are working at pace to get that finalised. As the report recommends, further independent advice and assurance on the project will be undertaken. The MCA require confidence that identified risks can be appropriately managed in both the shorter and the longer term, which is really a long way of saying, essentially, we, of course, are custodians of public money and are determined to make sure that public money is spent well, as people would fully expect. I do seem to remember, I think the councillor, but certainly friends of the councillor, saying that no cost was too high for the airport. We have always said that we need to spend money effectively, public money effectively, and are doing the right thing by making sure that that money is appropriately and effectively used, and that's exactly what we intend to keep on doing. So thank you very much. Ros, did you want to come in on that question?
Thank you, and I'll answer the element that's been actually identified for me to answer from Councillor Jane Cox. There are a range of mitigations that have been considered with both this report and previous reports. Our outline business case, full business case and independent assessment are being considered, as per the Subsidy Advice Unit report, which stated, in our view, the assessment demonstrates that the Council has considered other options for reopening the airport and clearly explains the evidence as why a subsidy was the most appropriate option to achieve this outcome.
Thank you, Rose. And thank you for the question. Okay, on to agenda item number 9, minutes of the previous meeting. Are members content that those minutes are an accurate record? Perfect. Okay. Oh, sorry, the minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of January will be considered at the meeting on the 18th of March. So there we go. On to agenda item number 10 then, please. South Yorkshire Airport City. Ros, would you like to speak to this agenda item or give it any introduction?
I'm very happy to speak to this item. I believe the actual reopening of South Yorkshire Airport is crucial to the economic advantages South Yorkshire, Doncaster and South Yorkshire can gain, both in the numbers of people employed and also the fantastic BCR rate of return over the long term. This is a medium to long term strategy that will actually bring great benefits to the Doncaster and the whole of South Yorkshire, and therefore I'm delighted to see this coming forward today, and I'm hopeful that my colleagues will support the report in front of them with the funding that helps keep on with the ongoing opening of the airport. Thank you.
Thank you. Gareth, could I ask you to lead us through the paper, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So since we last talked to the board, there's clearly been a number of significant developments, some of which have been referenced today. So the procurement exercise is now concluded, albeit it has not returned an operator that could bring with it private investment. To address this, CDC have now stood up a wholly owned subsidiary, Fly Doncaster, and as announced, that subsidiary will partner with Munich International Airport. So that's great news. It returns a credible international airport operator. The Subsidy Advice Unit has now published its report that was broadly positive, with some recommendations on how the submission could be improved. And Doncaster colleagues are now working with their legal team on that issue. The FBC has now been received in its full and final form, reflecting changes to the operating model, and that document is now being taken through our independent assurance processes. Finally, as you mentioned, Mayor, on the 29th of January, the Chancellor of the Exchequer committed government to working with local partners to re-establish the airport as a thriving airport. We know that the opportunity remains significant. So GVA of 6.6 billion, a benefit cost ratio of 9.1, and 5,000 direct jobs, 6,500 indirect jobs. But we also know that there remains significant risk associated with this project. Its November board, the board commissioned an internally prepared risk report that's appended to this document. That report sets out some of the challenges, particularly around the head risks and the inherent challenges in recapturing market share. These risks, alongside the recent government announcement, means that there's now a requirement to seek further advice, and that advice has been referenced previously in this meeting. The MCA will require confidence that the identified risk can be appropriately managed, and ultimately the successful management of those risks will be critical to the success of the project overall. So balancing the need for this work along with the operational timeline as identified through the business case is now critical. So this report proposes to advance Doncaster £10 million of revenue funding to progress necessary operational activity. That allows necessary activity to continue whilst we undertake further work to support a final decision in the summer. So we're proposing that revenue expenditure is funded from uncommitted Treasury management money to be reimbursed over time from Doncaster's allocation of gain share revenue. So I'm happy to take any questions at that point, Mayor.
Thank you. Obviously happy to have an open discussion with members in public and on the live webcast, but just want to be clear about there might be some commercially sensitive issues that we might just need to steer clear of, so just conscious of that. Does anybody would like to comment on the proposal? I know we've spoken at length about this over the last number of weeks, so conscious of that. Yeah, Caroline.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to make a quick comment that we're fully supportive in Barnsley of this. It's a movement, it's a step forward, a positive step. seeing Sheffield Doncaster Airport come to life, and we welcome this report today. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm acutely conscious, you know, as Gareth has mentioned, as we spoke about the opening of the meeting, about Rachel Reeves' recent statement and how that might hopefully change the picture and gather the government support for our airport. Really pleased to hear that. We have a significant amount of work still to do, clearly, to reassure ourselves and clearly some members of the public, but really keen to crack on with that work, and I think this decision today would give us that opportunity to carry on with that work to make sure we're in the best possible place by summer to take a decision. So unless there's any other comments that people would like to make? No? Okay, could I ask then that the board note the progress made in establishing the wholly owned SPV Fly Doncaster and in securing an operator partner. Note the publication of a report by the Subsidy Advice Unit and further work being undertaken by CDC to consider the Subsidy Advice Unit's recommendations. Note the commitment of His Majesty's Government to working with local partners to support creating South Yorkshire Airport City. Agree to commission independent advice and assurance work as outlined at paragraphs 1.22 and 1.23 with the delegation to develop detailed terms of reference to the Chief Exec and Head of Paid Service in consultation with the Mayor. Approve the award to the CDC of a revenue funding of up to £10 million from uncommitted Treasury management resource to support ongoing costs and progression of time-critical reinstatement activity to be reimbursed from future year CDC gain share funding. Note that in the event that government funding is made available to support these costs, this funding will be used in the first instance. To number 7, delegate authority to the Chief Executive and Head of Paid Service in consultation with the Section 73 Officer and Monitoring Officer to agree terms and conditions of funding and approve drawdown of funding by CDC. Are we all agreed? Yes, agreed. Ross, agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Caroline, agreed. Thank you.
Chair, can I just make a
Please do.
statement? And I'd like to thank colleagues at the MCA for their continued support and financial backing today. We can now continue our plans at pace to reopen our airport in spring, hopefully 2026, and look forward to the future outcomes this summer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. In which case, on to agenda item number 11, which is decisions and delegated authority report from Martin Spells.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the report that comes to each MCA board, which notes delegated decisions between, in this particular case, 17th of January and the 31st of January. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. In which case, that takes us to the end of the meeting, unless anybody's got any other business. No? In which case, we will see you at next month's meeting.